Welcome to my Stop Fighting with Your Son podcast. If this is your first time here, I recorded 4 episodes especially for you to help you eliminate the fights right away and start connecting with your boy as soon as possible. Go to episodes 54 through 59. I have 4 boys of my own, and I know better than anyone how much you want to have a good relationship with your boy and all the things that can come in your way. If you are a mom of boys, I am the coach for you. Let's go.
Hey guys, how's it going? How are you doing? What's new with you? What are your plans? What's your week look like? I hope it's going really well. Mine's going well, although of course life with kids is never boring. One kid is sick, the other kid is sick. It's like everything changes minute by minute. So last night, one of them, poor guy, was puking. The other was sent home yesterday from school because he had a terrible cough. Today, one of them went back. The other one has a little fever on the couch now, watching movies. I feel like every time I record a podcast now, I have a kid sick watching a show upstairs. But that's how it is, right? That's because I think they're not wearing masks at school anymore, so they're kind of picking up all the germs now. So hopefully that passes soon. So he's going to feel better. Everything's good. And I have a little story for you today because my mom, whenever she listens to my stories, she always says she likes my stories. So I'm going to tell you a story. Hi, Mama. And so here's a story about one of my twinsies just had a birthday. And of course, this story will bring me to the podcast topic is rejection. And actually coached someone on that recently, so I will wrap it up then. But first, I'm going to start with a story. So my twins had a birthday recently. They turned 6, and of course, we threw a party for them and invited some friends. And a lot of people RSVP'd, but 2 days before the party, I got a message from this one little girl's parents saying, "Oh, we're so sorry. There was an incident today at school and she doesn't feel comfortable coming to the party anymore." And, at first I was, of course, kind of a little shocked and surprised. And I thought, okay, you know what? I'm not going to get too involved. I said, "I'm so sorry. I hope she feels better. Is there anything you can do?" So then they tell me that one of my little boys punched her in the stomach. And my boys are not known for violence at school. Yes, they're super rough with each other because there's 4 boys and that's how they express love and affection and anything, right? Really? So because they're boys. As you know, you have sons, so you would know. But at school, they've been really good boys. Knock on wood, everything's been good. So, and of course, it came as a shock to me to hear that. So I thought maybe he was just playing around. Maybe he was pretend punching her, maybe he was affectionate, or maybe he did truly try to see what happens, right? And of course, the teacher agreed with me. She said he's not violent, like he's no way. She didn't even know it happened. And so she said everything's good. So anyway, everything got figured out by the time the party happened. And I apologized. He apologized. Everyone was really nice to each other. Everything was great. But the day before, like while it was happening, while we were figuring it out, I found myself to be home and I felt really sad. I felt like really hurt. Like, how can someone not like my boy? He's so sweet. It just felt so hurtful to me and sad. And I felt like I was rejected, or even worse, like my son was rejected. So I cried. I was crying. I was like, oh no, my poor boy. He's so sweet. How can someone not want to be his friend? And because I have done this work for myself and for a while now, I knew that what to do in that situation. I knew that all I had to do in the moment was just be sad. I didn't have to change my son. I didn't have to give him a big lecture. Although, I did do like the usual, like, we don't hurt people, blah, blah, blah. And the girls don't like, like fighting for fun. But I knew that there was no actual problem to solve. And so all I had to do was just feel sad. All I had to do was just cry, feel hurt, and then that would be all gone. So let me go right into my topic, because I'm already kind of telling you what to do. Because a lot of us, like, we would feel like there's a real problem that my son got rejected, right? Like, it feels like a problem, right? Because we feel sad, because we feel hurt, we feel like he shouldn't be rejected. Of course, we don't want him to be rejected, right? It feels bad, of course. Okay, so my client also had a similar situation, and let me just read about what she wrote to me. She said, "I love him so much, her son, and it breaks my heart to see him get rejected by other kids. And I'm scared it has an impact on his personality. He used to be very outgoing, and now at the park, he asked me to ask for him if he can play with other kids. Like, he's scared of being rejected. It makes me want to cry because I feel so sad to see him struggle like that. I wish things would be easy for him." These were the words of my client. See, very similar to what I experienced. I cried, I was sad, and I want him not to be rejected. So here's what I want to tell you, moms of boys. First of all, I want to sell you on this idea that it's not a problem that he's rejected. Okay, hear me out. First piece of information I want to tell you that should give you relief is that no one's being rejected anywhere, because when we look at the story and we see, okay, what's actually going on here, and we look at the facts, we can separate the facts from your story about what happened. For example, the little boy goes to the playground and says, do you want to play with me? And the other kid may say nothing, just like little kids do. If they don't want to do something, they don't say anything, right? Or they might say no, right? Or they might say some sort of version of that. Or like in my son's scenario, the girl said, "I don't want to go to the party anymore," right? Those are the facts, okay? So notice how the words of the facts are, like, the girl said, "I don't want to go anymore," or the kid said no. And then we take those facts as moms and we put them into our brain, and our brain interprets it in a way that it thinks is useful, or it like tries to rationalize it. It interprets it. It gives it a story. It doesn't just say, "Oh, she said no." No, the brain says, "Oh, she rejected him," or "he rejected him." Right? It makes up a story about it, which is what our brains are supposed to do, right? They're supposed to judge situations as good and bad, as safe, not safe. And because we have a primitive brain that all animals have, and we have developed, we are meant to live in groups because it feels safe. So of course, when our primitive brain senses that we have been rejected or our kid is rejected, it feels dangerous, feels not safe, and we want to avoid that by all means. All right? We want to avoid that for our kids by all means. So of course, that feels terrible. Of course, we want to avoid that. Because back in the day when we had to survive by living in a group, like when we were cavemen, being rejected from the group could literally meant death, because we could not be protected from wild animals. We would starve, so we would die. So rejection literally meant death back then. And so our brain still interprets rejection in this way. It feels super dangerous. It feels not safe. We must be accepted by all means. Okay? But because we have an evolved part of our brain, we can then comfort the scared part of us. We can then tell it, okay, someone rejecting your little kid at the playground is not going to cause anyone to die. We're not going to starve. Wild animals will not eat us. It's totally fine. This is part of life now and it's not dangerous. And then we comfort it and then and it trusts us because we're wise. And if you think about it, rejection is a huge part of life for grown-ups and for kids. Grown-ups, we get rejected for jobs. We get rejected by partners. I mean, your boy will get rejected a lot, probably by women or men, right? Whoever they pursue. Jobs, friends. So I like to think of it as good practice for the kids. Practice being rejected. Practice handling rejection. So because, again, let's go back to the facts. Straight away from the facts. The facts are the kids said no, but our brain creates a conclusion, oh no, the kid's been rejected. And when we create that story will create our feeling. What happens at the playground between our kid and another kid does not create our feeling. What happened between my son and his friend didn't make me cry, didn't make me sad, did not make me hurt, because when that happened, I didn't know what was happening, right? So how can something outside of me make me feel something while it's happening? The only way I can do that is by my brain telling me something about it. So later when I found out it was happening, my brain interpreted it in a way like, oh no, my sweet little boy, how someone doesn't want to be his friend. That was a story that was making me feel sad. Okay? Not what happened between my little boy and his friend. It was what my thoughts were. My thoughts in the moment, they felt true, right? I will give you that. They will feel true. They will feel like you are just experiencing life. But between life and your feeling of sadness, there's always this commentary in your brain. Always these words, these thoughts in your brain will create your sadness. Or not. Okay, so because I knew this, and I hope you will also use this and have relief, because I knew it wasn't actually coming from what happened. I knew it was coming from myself, from my brain. All I had to do was just, be compassionate, be understanding with myself. Be like, of course, I feel sad because I feel so, because I'm telling myself the story about my little boy, that someone doesn't want to be his friend. Oh no, right? Of course. So I knew that all I had to do was just feel my feeling, like feel sad, cry, right? And then once that passed, I was like, okay, then I knew that rejection is not a problem. It's part of life. Okay, so this is the other part. So when I tell you that your story will create your feelings for you, in this situation, I don't want you to tell yourself a wonderful story. You probably don't want to tell yourself that, oh, everything's amazing, everyone loves my son, when someone just said no to him, right? When someone said, my kid doesn't want to come to your son's birthday party, you don't want to tell yourself that everyone loves my kid. That just doesn't make any sense. You don't want that, right? We're not here in the business of lying to ourselves. And I am not here to tell you to be positive about it, right? This is not about that. I am inviting you to be a human here. And humans will think, oh, I am feeling sad because I'm thinking my son was rejected. So you probably want to feel sad, right? About your son being rejected. But here, after hearing this episode, I want you to attribute your feeling of sadness not to what happened to your son, but to your own thought about it. Okay? And that will give you all the power to control how you feel about it, right? Because if we are dependent on what happened with our son, we can't change that. We can't go back in the past and change whether they were rejected or not. It happened, right? So since we're telling ourselves a story about it, we probably still want to tell ourselves a story that it's rejection, right? Because it makes sense. But then what do we think about rejection? And I want to tell you that, is it useful? to think rejection is a problem. And I don't think so. I think that rejection is part of life and it's supposed to be there. And yes, even for little kids, even for big kids, for all the kids. I know it's heartbreaking. I know we want the best for them. I know we want them to everything to be easy for them, just like my client said. But when we think that way and things are not easy for them, we're then a little bit frustrated, disappointed, upset, right? We're not happy with reality. So the other option is for us to plan on it. Oh, of course, my son will get rejected. And in fact, my son will get rejected a lot in his life. And this is when he starts getting rejected, and it's good practice for him to handle being rejected. Right? How do you feel when you are expecting your son to get rejected? I feel prepared. I feel open to it. I feel like I feel like nothing has gone wrong, and I hope that you also will adopt this mindset that nothing has gone wrong here. This is part of life, and it's part of life for your kid. I know that we don't want that to be part of life for them. We're like, we'll handle it. We're grown-ups. It's supposed to be, 50-50 for us, but no, not for our kids. I'm sure we can figure out how we can protect them from that. No, this is supposed to happen. You are supposed to have your son being rejected. And when that happens, a few things happen. When your son gets a no, he will have thoughts about it, which will create his experience of it for him. And that could be something that feels bad and can be a problem, or that can be something that makes him stronger and makes him more resilient and helps him move forward. And he can practice good thoughts about himself, right? And then you will have thoughts about that as well, which will make your experience about it. And as his mom, I really think that you can influence his perception of him being rejected. And how you react to his rejection will set the tone for how he should react. If you don't react like it's a problem, if you're like, oh yeah, that's totally fine, then he will also think, oh, then it's totally fine, right? He will think his own thoughts, right? But as kids do, they copy what they see and they try to be like us, and then they learn by our reactions sometimes what they should react like, right? So this is what I love to do with my kids, is totally not make it a big deal. When something like that happens, I go, oh, okay, well, what do you want to do now? What do you want to think now about this? How do you want to feel about this? Is this a problem for you? And I don't think it's a problem for them to have hardship and struggle, and so I don't react in that way. And so I act like this is normal part of life, and I want to encourage you to do the same, because that's the truth, right? So that's the reality of life. It will be hardship 50% of the time. And because you have a human brain that thinks thoughts that create negative emotion for you 50% of the time, right? So I want you to be, let me just check my notes. So I think I covered everything, and I hope that you, as a mom, with this information from my podcast, you are the perfect mom to guide him through all of the hardships, right? Because you know that ultimately he gets to decide how he views the rejection. He can he can make it mean something about himself that makes him feel bad. And as a mom, you can ask him, how does that feel? Do you want to decide to think that? What do you want to make it mean? Right? When someone rejects you, what do you want to make it mean about you? You don't have to make it mean anything about you. You can just make means something about them. Oh, they just didn't want to play with me. It has nothing to do with me, right? And you are the perfect mom to guide them. And if you're still struggling with any of this and you are not quite seeing the whole facts versus story, I really invite you to come get coached and talk about your situation specifically and your thoughts specifically so that we can look at them and you can choose consciously what it is that you want to feel about your son when your son's rejected. It's up to you. You can live the life where your son's rejection is a non-event. It's not a big deal. Of course, it doesn't mean anything. You can even make it mean something good about him, right? Of course, you have to believe it, and I believe it. I think it makes him stronger, and I think it makes me also stronger as a mom when I can handle my son being rejected. And that's actually one of my favorite thoughts about that when my kids struggle is they can handle it. Like he was rejected and he can handle it. And I tell them that, oh, it's fine, you can handle it. And if they don't believe it, and if they're whining, oh, I don't know, right? I don't buy it from them. I tell them, nope, I know you can do it. I know you can handle it. And I know I can handle them being rejected because I know I can handle crying and I know I can handle being sad. And that's all that's required. And after it passes, I move on to the next, right? And if I have another a wave of sadness, then I will cry again. And of course, you as a mom, this is a big part of your job as a mom, is to feel that for your kids, right? Is to feel sad and to not want them to be rejected. And the other sentence I want to point out to you that my client wrote, and she said, I wish things would be easy for him. And I want to show you that when we think that sentence, when we believe it, and things are not easy for him, we suffer. We really, really, really suffer. We feel so disappointed and sad and frustrated and angry. Because when our expectation doesn't match reality, we will always lose. So, because life is supposed to be 50% negative emotion, 50% terrible, why don't we think that I want 50% of life to be easy for my kid, and I want 50% of life to be hard for my kid, because that's what life is. So then when we get that in life, we are satisfied. We are not miserable. We're like, yes, that's exactly what I expected. That's exactly what I expect for him. And that's exactly what we get. Not a problem. All right, my friends, if you need help with any of this, I really would love to help you. And you can come sign up for a free session. You can go to my website at www.coachingnatalia.com. Go to the sign up for a free session tab, pick a time that works for you, and you can completely change your relationship with your son just with the first few sessions, even before we get down deep. So have a great week, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.